Welcome to second part of Red Dead Redemption theories, and don't worry, today we again have some of the craziest theories of all time, and I'm gonna either prove or disapprove them. So let's start. Is Jack Marston really John Marston's son? As you may know, Jack Marston is the son of John and Abigail Marston, two former members of the Van der Linde gang. Jack was born in 1895, around the time of the botched Blackwater heist that left John wounded and separated from the gang. Jack grew up with his parents on their ranch in Beecher's Hope, until John was forced by the government to hunt down his former comrades in 1911. After John's death, Jack avenged his father by killing Edgar Ross, the agent who betrayed him, and became an outlaw himself. However, Jack may not be John's biological son, and that he may have inherited his genes from another member of the Van der Linde gang. This theory is based on several hints and clues from both games, as well as some physical and personality differences between Jack and John. The first and most obvious piece of evidence is Abigail's past as a prostitute for the gang. Abigail joined the gang in 1894 and had sexual relations with several gang members, including Dutch, Javier, Bill, and possibly Arthur. This is confirmed by Dutch himself in the first game, when he says to John, "We all had her, but he married her." This implies that Abigail was pregnant with Jack around the time she was sleeping with multiple men, and that John may not have been the father. Another piece of evidence is John's absence from the gang for a year, which is mentioned several times in the second game. John left the gang because he doubted Jack's paternity and wanted to start a new life with Abigail. However, he returned after realizing that he loved Jack as his own son, and that he couldn't escape his past. This shows that John himself was unsure of Jack's origins, and that he may have had a reason to suspect that someone else was the father. A third piece of evidence is Arthur's subtle hint to Jack in the second game, when he says to him, "You don't look much like a Marston, maybe a Williamson or an Escuela." This could be interpreted as Arthur joking with Jack, or as Arthur implying that he knows something that Jack doesn't. Arthur was very close to Abigail, and may have been aware of her affairs with other gang members. He may have also noticed some resemblance between Jack and Javier or Bill, two of the men who Abigail slept with. Also, Jack's physical appearance and personality, which some fans claim are different from John's. Jack has light brown hair, while both John and Abigail have dark hair. Jack also has a more slender and less muscular build than John, and a softer and higher-pitched voice. Jack is also more interested in books and writing than in guns and fighting, and seems to have a more gentle and sensitive nature than John. Some fans have suggested that Jack may look more like Javier, who has light brown hair and a similar facial structure, or Arthur, who has a similar nose and chin. But there are also some counter-arguments to this theory, which suggest that Jack is indeed John's son. The first and most important counter-argument is that genetics are not always predictable, and that Jack may have inherited some traits from his grandparents or other ancestors. It is possible that John or Abigail had a light-haired or slender relative, and that Jack got those genes from them. It is also possible that Jack's hair color and body type changed as he grew older, and that he may have looked more like John when he was younger. Another counter-argument is that John and Jack do share some physical and personality traits, which indicate a familial bond. John and Jack have the same eye color, which is a dominant trait. John and Jack also have similar scars on their faces, which are the result of injuries they sustained during their adventures. John and Jack also have a similar sense of humor, and a similar way of speaking, which may be influenced by their environment and upbringing. John and Jack also have a strong love and loyalty for their family, and a sense of justice and honor, which may be inherited or learned from each other. John's acceptance of Jack as his son is more important than his biological origin. John may have had doubts about Jack's paternity, but he ultimately chose to raise him as his own son, and to love him unconditionally. John taught Jack how to hunt, fish, ride, and shoot, and how to be a good man. John also sacrificed his life to protect Jack and Abigail from the government, and to give them a chance at a better future. John's actions show that he was a true father to Jack, regardless of who was the biological father. In my opinion, this theory is false. John is indeed biological father because Javier didn't join the gang until Abigail had Jack, and any other member doesn't give much vibe. Next theory is about the mystery of Gavin and his friend. If you have played Red Dead Redemption 2, you have probably encountered a man named Nigel, who is constantly wandering around the map, looking for his friend Gavin. Nigel is a British gentleman who claims that he and Gavin came to America together, but Gavin mysteriously disappeared one day. Nigel has been searching for Gavin ever since, but he has no clue where he is or what happened to him. Nigel is so obsessed with finding Gavin that he even forgets what he looks like. But who is Gavin, and where is he? Is he even real, or is he a figment of Nigel's imagination? Is he alive or dead? Is he a friend or an enemy? Is he a human or something else? These are the questions that have baffled Red Dead Redemption 2 players for years, and today, we are going to try to answer them. There are many theories and speculations about Gavin's identity and whereabouts, but none of them have been confirmed or proven by the game developers or the game itself. However, some of them are more plausible than others, based on the evidence and clues that we can find in the game. Theory 1. Gavin is the boy locked in the Rhodes gunsmith's basement. One of the most popular theories is that Gavin is the boy locked in the Rhodes gunsmith's basement. This theory is based on the fact that the boy is also British, and he has a similar accent and appearance to Nigel. The boy also claims that he was kidnapped by the gunsmith, who forced him to dress up as his son and act like a good boy. The theory suggests that the boy is actually Gavin, and that he and Nigel were partners in crime who came to America to scam people. However, their plan went wrong when the gunsmith captured Gavin and locked him in his basement, while Nigel managed to escape and started looking for him. This theory is quite intriguing, but it has some major flaws. First of all, the boy does not recognize Arthur Morgan when he talks to him, even though Arthur has met Nigel several times before. If the boy was Gavin, he would have recognized Arthur as one of Nigel's acquaintances, and he would have asked him for help. Second, the boy does not mention anything about Nigel or Gavin when he talks to Arthur. He only talks about the gunsmith and his situation. If the boy was Gavin, he would have mentioned Nigel and asked Arthur to tell him where he is. Third, the boy does not seem to be in any distress or pain. He is calm and polite, and he even thanks Arthur for freeing him. If the boy was Gavin, he would have been traumatized and angry, and he would have tried to escape or attack the gunsmith. Fourth, the boy does not have any scars or injuries on his body. He is clean and well-dressed, and he does not look like he has been tortured or abused. If the boy was Gavin, he would have been bruised and battered, and he would have looked like he has been living in a basement for a long time. Therefore, based on these points, we can conclude that this theory is false. The boy locked in the Rhodes gunsmith's basement is not Gavin, and he has nothing to do with Nigel or his mystery. Gavin is a stranger's corpse found in the game. The most recent and controversial theory is that Gavin is a stranger's corpse found in the game. The theory suggests that the corpse is Gavin, and that he was killed by someone or something, and his body was dumped in the wilderness. The theory also suggests that Nigel is unaware of Gavin's death, and he is still looking for him, hoping that he is alive. This theory is quite shocking, but it has some problems. First of all, the corpse does not have any identification or proof that it is Gavin. There is no letter, no wallet, no name tag, no nothing. The corpse is just a random stranger that happens to look like Gavin. Second, the corpse does not have any cause of death or signs of violence. There is no blood, no bullet holes, no stab wounds, no nothing. The corpse is just a dead body that happens to be in the game. Third, the corpse does not have any connection or relation to Nigel or his mystery. There is no evidence or clue that links the corpse to Nigel or Gavin, or their story. The corpse is just a background element that happens to be in the game. So, what is the verdict? Who is Gavin, and where is he? Is he real or not? Is he alive or dead? Is he a friend or an enemy? Is he a human or something else? The truth is, we don't know. The game does not give us a definitive answer or solution to the mystery of Gavin and his friend. The game does not reveal Gavin's identity or whereabouts, or his fate or purpose. The game does not explain Nigel's obsession or motivation, or his sanity or madness. The game does not resolve Nigel's quest or dilemma, or his happiness or sorrow. The game leaves us with more questions than answers, and more theories than facts. And maybe that is the point. Maybe the game wants us to wonder and imagine. Next is the Emerald Ranch tragedy. The Emerald Ranch is a seemingly peaceful and prosperous farm located in the heartlands of New Hanover. But if you look closer, you'll find that there is something very wrong going on there. The owner of the ranch, Eugene Wegner, is a violent and abusive man who treats his workers poorly and has a dark secret involving his daughter, Miriam. The first clue to this mystery is the woman who appears in the window of the main house at night. If you approach the house, you'll see her staring into the distance, looking sad and lonely. She never leaves the house, and no one ever talks about her. Who is she, and why is she locked up in there? To find out more, we need to talk to some of the NPCs around the ranch. They will tell us that Eugene is a mean and cruel man who never gives them a day off and beats them if they disobey him. They will also mention that he was obsessed with his daughter and that she hasn't been seen in a long time. Some of them will even say that he killed her lover in a fit of jealousy and locked her away in the house. But is this true? Is Miriam really Eugene's prisoner? Or is there more to the story? To find out, we need to look for some evidence, and luckily, there is plenty of it in the game. The first piece of evidence is a letter that we can find in a broken-down mail wagon southwest of Fort Wallace in the Cumberland Forest. The letter is addressed to Miriam Wegner from her cousin Annabelle. In the letter, Annabelle expresses her condolences for the loss of Miriam's partner, Joshua, who died in a horrible way. She also says that she has written to Miriam 6 times, but never got a reply. She wonders if Miriam is too grief-stricken to write back, or if Eugene is withholding the letters from her. The second piece of evidence is a crime scene that we can find in an abandoned saloon near the Emerald Ranch. Inside, we can see blood on the floor and bullet holes on the wall. Behind the saloon, we can find a tombstone for Joshua Burgess, who died in 1895. This confirms that Joshua was Miriam's lover, and that he was killed by someone, most likely Eugene. The third piece of evidence is Eugene himself. If we go to the house at the Emerald Ranch, we can often find him sitting on the porch. He is very hostile and will challenge us to a fight if we get too close. He will also threaten us if we mention his daughter or ask about the woman in the window. He clearly has something to hide, and he doesn't want anyone to interfere with his business. So, based on these pieces of evidence, we can conclude that the theory of the Emerald Ranch tragedy is true. Eugene Wegner killed Joshua Burgess out of jealousy and locked Miriam Wegner in the house, preventing her from contacting anyone or leaving the ranch. He is a murderer and a tyrant, and Miriam is his victim. But what can we do about it? Can we save Miriam from her father's clutches? Unfortunately, the game doesn't give us any option to do so. We can't break into the house, we can't talk to Miriam, and we can't kill Eugene without getting a bounty on our head. The only thing we can do is watch and hope that Miriam will find a way to escape someday. Now let's investigate one of the creepiest and most intriguing locations in the game: the abandoned town of Pleasance. Pleasance is a small settlement in the state of Lemoyne, near the border with New Hanover. It was founded in August 1883, but apparently deserted a month later, in September 1883. The town is surrounded by a wooden fence, with a sign that reads, Plaisance, population 0. Inside the town, there are several buildings, including a church, a schoolhouse, a general store, and a barn. The town also has a graveyard, with 10 graves, all dated September 17, 1883. The cause of death for each person is either a gunshot or a knife wound. But what happened to the people of Pleasance? Why did they die so suddenly and violently? And why did the town become abandoned? There are many theories and speculations about the fate of Pleasance, but one of the most popular and intriguing ones is that the town was struck by a plague, similar to the Black Death that ravaged Europe in the 14th century. The main evidence for this theory is the graffiti that can be seen on some of the buildings in the town. On the wall of a house, there are the words "ill with sin" and "unclean sinners" written in red paint. On the door of the barn, there is the phrase, "Stay out, plague," also in red paint. These messages suggest that the town was infected by a deadly disease, and that the survivors either killed themselves or were killed by outsiders who feared the contagion. But what kind of plague was it, and where did it come from? Some fans have pointed out that the plague could be related to the bacterium Yersinia pestis, which causes bubonic, pneumonic, and septicemic plague in humans and animals. This bacterium was responsible for the Black Death, which killed millions of people in Europe and Asia in the 14th century. According to some historians, the Black Death originated in Western China and spread through trade routes and human carriers to other regions. The symptoms of the plague include fever, chills, headache, vomiting, swollen lymph nodes, coughing, and bleeding. One of the sources that supports this idea is an article by the historian Monica Green, published in the American Historical Review in 2020. In this article, Green argues that the Black Death was not a single event, but a series of outbreaks that occurred in different places and times, starting from the 13th century. She identifies 4 distinct genetic lineages of Yersinia pestis that spread separately throughout the world, and traces their origin to a Big Bang that occurred in Western China around 1200. She also finds concrete evidence that the plague was already spreading in Asia in the 1200s, and that it reached Europe in the 1340s. Green's article is based on the analysis of ancient DNA samples from plague victims, as well as historical texts and archaeological data. She uses a multidisciplinary approach that combines genetics, history, and geography to reconstruct the transmission routes and evolution of the plague. Her article is considered a landmark in the field of plague studies and challenges the traditional narrative of the Black Death. So, how does this relate to Pleasance? Well, one possibility is that the town was infected by one of the 4 lineages of Yersinia pestis that Green identified, and that the plague reached America through trade or migration. This could explain why the town was abandoned so quickly, and why the graffiti mentions a plague. It could also explain why the barn is locked and has a warning on it. Maybe the barn was used to quarantine the sick or the dead, or maybe it contained some animals that carried the disease. But in my opinion, there are some problems with this theory. First of all, there is no direct evidence that Yersinia pestis was present in Pleasance, or in America in general, in the 19th century. The only way to confirm this would be to find and analyze some DNA samples from the town, which is unlikely to happen. Second, the symptoms and causes of death of the people of Pleasance do not match the typical signs of the plague. As we mentioned, the plague causes swollen lymph nodes, coughing and bleeding, but the people of Pleasance died from gunshots and knife wounds. This suggests that they were killed by violence, not by disease. Third, the graffiti on the buildings could have a different meaning than a literal plague. It could be a metaphor for sin, or a way to blame the victims for their fate. It could also be a hoax or a prank, or a way to scare off intruders. Another theory that some fans have proposed is that Pleasance was not affected by a plague, but by a zombie outbreak. This theory is based on the fact that Pleasance is a reference to the horror genre, and especially to the TV show The Walking Dead. The town has many similarities with the show, such as the wooden fence, the church, the barn, and the graffiti. The phrase "stay out plague" is very similar to the phrase "don't open dead inside" that appears on a hospital door in the first episode of the show. The town also has a connection to the first Red Dead Redemption game, an undead nightmare. But it isn't much convincing if you ask me. I think we are done. I love making these theory videos because just investigating them is so interesting. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Do you have any video idea? Let me know in the comments. Finally, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.